Hey Ben, how's it going, man?
It's going well.
Okay,
Busy.
good. I'm sorry about the delay. Uh,
No worries.
Sometimes I have issues during the summer, like not having an office, so I'm operating out of a very large Planet Hollywood bathroom, and then I also have issues with Wi-Fi, so that took me a while to set up. Let me know if I start to lag behind at all, because I might have to switch it over to the high-speed Wi-Fi. So if my webcam starts to lag behind or my screen sharing software starts to lag behind, let me know and I'll fix it. Okay. Also, I'm recording this time, so
Great, great.
we should
And
be
if
good.
you, I don't know, you probably have beginner session, the pre-flop thing. If you happen to have like a session you could share with me with another student, that would be great, just so I could
Um,
review it.
oh yeah, let me write that down because I have a couple of those recordings, and some of them are better than others, and I'll send you one for
Yeah,
free because
just
I felt bad that I completely forgot to record it. So
no big deal. You were like, we started. You're like, you're gonna want to review this video multiple times before
yeah,
we started. But
I'll
not
for sure send you um,
yeah, anyone you have with
a
another
pre-flop
like a
coaching video, and then I'll also send you the four profitability generators video and a PDF of all of that as well. So
okay,
um,
and then this one's recording already, right?
yeah, we're good to go. So I'll after this session, I will um, save the footage and then edit it, render it, export it, send it to you. So that's all
Okay.
part of it. So there's one thing that you texted me yesterday, and I remember it being important, and I wanted to discuss it first.
Sure.
What was that? It was. Oh, you were asking me if there were ever times when it was profitable to flat in position. Um,
Yeah. Is there? Yeah. I asked you, is there ever a time where it's profitable to flat in position? Because what I got from the last coaching was that, in general, from a GTO perspective, it's bad to be flatting um, when deep, or flatting in general, even in position, because you don't have the initiative. So I've played probably about 1,000 hands on Snowy since we last talked, and so I'm playing, and I have that in my head, like it's bad to flatten position. Then I was playing a cash game session last night. I had my first great session in like a long time, and which is awesome. I won like 2 grand, but anyways, I was coming into these positions where there's a lot of people like flatting, in this game, flatting, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Hunter says in general it's bad to flat in position because you don't have the initiative. So what are your thoughts on that?
okay, so the reason why live poker is exponentially more profitable than online poker is because everyone is flatting you too much. Okay, that's the same reason why we open bigger preflop. So online, everybody is either min raising or 2.5ing. And live, you're making it 3x minimum, 4x if it's a smaller game, sometimes 5x. And most people never bother to consider why that is. The reason is that your range, as a solid, tight aggressive player, is on average is going to be much stronger than the range of hands that people decide to flat you with, and as a result, you'd like to charge them a little bit more pre-flop. And then there's just a spillover effect. There are more big blinds in the pot than there should be, and that just boosts your win rate. So online, you're trying really hard to win 3 big blinds per 100 hands, right? Live, you should be shooting to win about 30 big blinds per 100 hands. Okay, so it's a full magnitude more um, that you're trying to win per 100 hands, right? Like if you want to average, let's say $100 an hour playing 5-10, you need to win 10 big blinds per
Half hour.
per half hour, and you're only going to play so many hands per. I'm getting all messed up. if you want to win $100 an hour, right? You're going to play roughly 33 hands in an hour, okay?
Yeah.
And at that point, you would have to be winning 10 big blinds per 33 hands or 30 big blinds per 100 hands to average that win rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like exponentially higher because you're playing fewer hands. It's much slower, but your opponents have such massive leaks. Most of them come from flatting. And that's why
Yeah.
you're able to achieve that. Okay, so like even when I'm playing 10-20 at Bellagio, that's what I was doing yesterday. People are still making the same mistakes. They're flattening too much. So to answer your question, um, like there are times when it's okay to flatten in position, but those times are like a fraction of what you see in live poker. It's so much less than you would think. And like I'm not sure if I told you this last session, but if you're flatting more than 12% of hands on the button, it's impossible for you to be a long-term winner. I've looked at every database of everyone that has ever been a big winner online, and I've never found one where somebody was flatting more than 12% of hands on the button and winning. Not one database over 100,000 hands where that was possible. So
And we say flat, are we counting limping in too as a flat?
no. We're only
Okay.
we're only calling like so if you had to do this in a filter in like Poker Tracker 4, it would just be
I
like
guess my question should have been then, is it ever correct to limp? I'm not flat, limp, because there's a lot of limpers, and it's like, okay, there's like 6 limpers ahead of me, and I'm on the button, and I look down at like pocket fours.
Okay, actually, that's a really astute question, and I'm glad you're thinking far enough ahead to see some of these situations. So, a purist like Ed Miller, somebody that only cares about game theory, would say that it's never correct to limp. It's not correct to open limp,
Okay.
and it's not correct to over limp ever because it caps your range, right? So when you limp the button, even if 3 people limped ahead of you, it's still impossible for you to have aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, king. You would never do that, right? So it's capping your range and exposing you to a large isolation raise from the small blind or the big blind. So if either of those guys are paying attention, they know that if they can get through the first limper, they get to take down all the dead money, or you can try and fight back and call. You can limp call with your pocket fours, but it's going to be really difficult for you to represent anything post flop. You understand how that works? So
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I get that.
So a purist
like
like Ed Miller would say you should never limp the button. I break those rules because in live poker, people aren't paying attention and they're not playing perfectly, right? The small blind and the big blind aren't isolating nearly as much as they should be. And as a result, you can occasionally take the small pocket pairs, let's say sevens through deuces, and over limp with those. You can also take the smaller suited aces that you don't want to, drastically increase the size of the pot with, and you could limp with those, the suited connectors, and some of those weaker suited broadways. Stay away from the offsuit Broadway stuff. So I consistently see guys like look down at Jack 10 offsuit and they have to limp the button. You're just setting yourself up for disaster, right? Because like if you flop a jack, it's not the best jack. If you flop a 10, it's not the best 10, right? You can't flop a flush draw. Like best case scenario would be like a 9-8 flop, and then you can just try and chase an open ender. So it's just not a good situation. Stay away from those offsuit Broadway hands, especially since they're 3 times more numerous than the suited hands, right? So if you start adding those Broadway hands, your range just gets really big very quickly. And
I noticed last night, I looked down at Jack 10 on the button, and I usually like get in there with that. And then like after the lesson that we had or the coaching session, and then, reviewing, playing the hands that you said, I'm like, this is a leak, and I just cleaned it up.
Yeah, and when you start approaching pre-flop play from that perspective, where you're all you're trying to do is create a situation where you can profit post-flop, and limping the button with Jack 10 is not going to do anything for you. It's so if you're not accomplishing anything with that hand, if it's not helping your range in some way, just take it out of there. Just scrap it. You can accomplish so much more with so much less. So that's what I would say about that is If there are limpers ahead of you, just take a look at the small blind and the big blind. Ask yourself, are these crazy people? If they're not, if it's like old man coffee and he's sitting there reading his newspaper, or one of those zombies that's just sitting there staring at his iPad, go ahead and limp in with fours, um, and see if you can stack one of these idiots, right? But if somebody's paying attention, like if I'm to your left, there's no argument could be made for limping the button, because I will attack that all day long. And there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do about it. I'll take literally every single suited ace in my range in the small blind and the big blind and raise with all of them. And if you decide to call the button, that's fine. I know how capped your range is. It's like the best hand you could possibly have would be like sevens or eights. And I'm going to fire three streets at you, and you're probably going to end up reluctantly folding, and because that's how I make my living. So stay away from that. Now, the other thing, let's go back to flattening the button versus a raise, right?
Yeah, that's why I want to get back to that flatting, because I did have that question.
So,
Limping and flatting, is it ever correct to flat as well in position?
yeah,
Because
so,
I have a smart poker player, and I was like, hey, I shared your blog article with him, and he
mhm.
goes, sounds like a smart guy. And my friend's an amazing poker player. He plays all the mixed games. He has a bracelet. He plays cash professionally. He's a great player. And he's like, I agree with everything he says, but the initiative thing in position. And that was like my question is like, and in that situation would be like, okay, this is where it's okay to flat in position without initiative.
Yeah, so it's like I said. I mean, there are times that you can do it, but the percentage of the time that you should be doing it is like a fourth of what you'll see in live poker. Okay, like that's really one of the biggest leaks that I see, and it goes all the way up. Like,
Yeah.
I can be playing a 10-20 uncapped game at Bellagio, the biggest hold'em game in the room most of the time, and half the guys at the table will still be making this mistake. Okay, like the three biggest leaks pre-flop. One is open limping, right? Number two is trying to flat with small pocket pairs versus loose opening ranges, right? We talked about that. It's
Yep.
really hard to
Yep.
stack somebody if he never has anything. If he's opening 40% hands from the cutoff, it's really hard to stack him when you flop a set. And then the third leak is flatting those weak Broadway hands like King 10 offsuit versus a tight opening range. So Old Man Coffee opens to $40 in a 5-10 game, and he's opening like the tens plus ace queen range, and you decide to flat with King 10 offsuit. What are you accomplishing with that? So those are the three biggest leaks, and it goes all the way up. Like I haven't played in a stake where I don't see that leak.